Hey everyone, Andy Raffel from eTeknix.com, and today we're looking at the beast, the devil, the Z490 Godlike. Let's do this. Behold mortals, wield the power of the gods with the MSI MEG Z490 Godlike. With 1690 amp phases for incredible overclocking capabilities. And featuring dual Thunderbolt 3 ports, 10 GBE LAN with Wi-Fi 6 and a PCIe Gen 4 expander card, you can achieve true enlightenment with the MSI MEG Z490 Godlike. So before I get started, I do want to make it clear that we are actually filming this video before we finish testing all of our Z490 motherboards. That's not to say that we're not going to have all of the benchmarks and the overclocking results at the end of this video, so definitely stick around and stay tuned for that one. Now, Godlike, it's part of the MEG range from MSI, which is their highest end. The Godlike is the highest end board that they have available, even so in the Z490 lineup. Now, the Godlikes are known for breaking world records. This actually did a world record on the i9-9900K, where it was able to hit 7,478 megahertz. So I'm expecting really good things from this when it comes to performance and especially overclocking. Now, the Godlike range of motherboards, you do generally get absolutely everything with it, but you are going to pay a premium for it. I'll warn you on that one. So let's talk about pricing. This is actually going to be coming in at $749 in the US and $764.99 in the UK. Now, just to put that into perspective, when the Z390 Godlike came in at retail on launch, it came in at $599.99 US dollars. So there is a little bit of a price jump, but that's something that we've come to expect with Z490 in general, because it just has a little bit more of a premium to it. But there are some features on here that perhaps weren't available on the Z390 Godlike. So let's start by talking about the style and the design of the board. I'd say it's honestly a nice little step up from its predecessor. The heatsinks seem to kind of flow a little bit more into each other and just looks more of a kind of single look, if that makes sense. Sadly, there is no sort of backplate on the rear. It's just got a couple of heat sinks to help cool down the phases and things like that, which we will talk about a little bit later. In terms of the color scheme, it's pretty bland in the grand scheme of things, and that's not a bad thing. That means that you're not going to have any trouble with having any colors on there that are going to dictate what your style or your theme of your build should be. The only real thing that maybe concerns me a little bit is some of the heat sinks have like a bluey green tinge to it, which I'm not sure whether I like it. I think it could look nice in the right build, but is that going to dictate maybe, the direction that you have to go with your build? In terms of lighting on the board, it's got enough, I guess. It has this sort of dragon logo up in the rear I/O. It also has lighting on the PCH, and over to this side on this eATX motherboard, you do have an LCD screen, which I really like. It can tell you frequencies and things like that of your processor and much more. Now, if you want to sort of extend your RGB above and beyond that, then it does have a single RGB header, 2 addressable headers, as well as a Corsair header for adding in Corsair RGB, because as we know, Corsair RGB is, well, the best RGB, right? Now, in terms of around your CPU socket, you will find that the heatsinks are pretty spaced away from the CPU socket, so you're not going to have any problem with ventilation, cooler clearance, or anything like that. Now, underneath these large heatsinks, that's where things really get interesting. So in terms of power delivery, it has 16 phases, which all deliver up to 90 amps worth of power each. It also has alloy chokes that can handle up to 45 amps each. Basically, when it comes to power, this has the best of the best. It has 10K Japanese capacitors and all that good stuff, which apparently is said to make a difference. To deliver all that power to the CPU socket, it does have 2 8-pin connectors, which I'm a little bit disappointed by, because looking at this and comparing it to offerings from Asus and Gigabyte, their boards actually have metal shielding around their 8-pin EPS connectors. This sadly doesn't, and I think at this price range, it's definitely something that it should have. Now, when you do have that amount of power, you are going to need decent cooling. So it has these stacked fins array heat sinks on there. It does have a heat pipe connecting them as well. And as I mentioned earlier, there are some MOSFET heat sinks on the rear to combat any heat that's escaping from the back of the board. You will also find that underneath this large rear I/O area, there are actually 2 zero Frozer fans in there, which will operate when they need to and turn off when they don't. Other cooling on the board basically stems down to the M.2 slots, and it is worth noting that these M.2 slots, as well as the expansion slots for PCI Express, are all PCI 4.0 compliant. So when Rocket Lake hits, these boards basically are going to be good to go, and that's the case for all MSI Z490 motherboards. With that, PCI Express Gen 4 on the M.2 side of things do generally release a lot more heat, and the cooler the better. Bit like a car, the cooler you can run it, the better performing it will be. So it has got the patented M.2 shield frozer design on there. In terms of other cooling capabilities, you have got 8 PWM headers, there's a water pump header, a water flow header, as well as your CPU fan connector. So with a total of 11 connectors, I think you're pretty much going to be covered. For your memory support, if you want to push things really to the limit, it has support of up to 128 gig of DDR4 5000 MHz plus, and does have shielding around every single memory slot. For all your storage needs, it has 6 SATA ports. Now, it is worth noting that there are some boards out there that are, I guess, comparative when it comes to pricing that have 8 SATA ports. So it's lacking maybe a little bit there for this particular price range. When it comes to M.2, it does have 3 slots. Again, there's comparative boards out there that can support up to 4, but that is through the way of a add-in card. That's where things get interesting, because you can obviously have things like what comes included with this, which is the expander card. That allows you to put more M.2s and simply slot it into one of the PCI Express lanes. Now, because this is a Z490 motherboard, it does have all the features that we'd expect in terms of USB capabilities, including 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C, 3.2 Gen 1, USB 2.0, and so forth. There are a few added extras that you do get with this board if you're looking at overclocking, for instance. So it has voltage readout points, BIOS switches, it has power and reset buttons, and not so much a debug LED, it has that screen that I was saying about, which can act essentially as a debug LED, but has so much more functionality to it. It's one of the things really that you have to see it to sort of really appreciate what it can do for you. And lastly, ending with the rear I/O. It is, as you'd expect, built into the actual motherboard, so you haven't got to scramble around looking for the I/O shield plate that you've left in the box. In terms of buttons and connectivity, for some weird reason, there is a PS2 mouse keyboard combo port, I guess for overclocking, sort of people who are a little bit old school. Has a flash BIOS button, a clear CMOS button, plenty of USBs, including 3.2 Gen 2 Type A's, 3.2 Gen 1 Type A's, and also USB 2.0. It has a Quantia 10 GBE, it has Intel 2.5G. It also has Thunderbolt 3, and that's probably why this board is a little kind of bit more expensive than the competition. Thunderbolt 3 generally does come at a premium due to licensing and things like that, and it has 2 ports. So you're going to get up to blistering fast speeds of up to 40 gigabit per second. I personally use Thunderbolt myself when transferring footage from this camera, because we record everything in 6K and the file sizes are just astronomical, and definitely, it helps a lot. Also on top of that, you have Intel Wi-Fi 6AX, and you have your gold-plated audio connectors and optical SPDIF. So connectivity wise, it's pretty much got everything that you could physically want. It's got the Thunderbolt, it's got the expander card, it does come with some nice little goodies in the box. It comes with pretty much everything. There's a few things that I personally would have liked to have seen on this board. Starting with a rear backplate, something that kind of covers it, especially the fact that we get that from the Asus Extreme as well as the Aorus Extreme motherboards that are around the same kind of price as this. I also would have liked to have seen shielding on the 8-pin EPS connectors. Other than that, I think they've ticked all the right boxes. It's definitely a step up from its predecessor, and even compared to the X570 in terms of its style and design. And I'm just hoping, that when it comes to overclocking and performance, it lives up to the name, godlike. So I guess I'll leave you with that, the overclocking results and also all of the benchmarks comparing this against every other Z490 motherboard that we have out there. So you can let me know, I guess, in the comments section below exactly what you think of this board and how it compares to the rest of them. Other than that, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know exactly what to do, and I will see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye. Godlike.